It's official. Ripple is going to become a bank. Brad Garlinghouse just tweeted, to our long-standing compliance roots, Ripple is applying for a national bank charter. What is Ripple going to need to do to become a bank? I have everything in this video. I'm also going to show you the benefits for Ripple, XRP, and USD if Ripple becomes a bank. Let's first better understand what Brad Garlinghouse is saying right here. Then I'm going to get into all of the information you need to know. True to our long-standing compliance roots, Ripple is applying for a national bank charter from the OCC. If approved, we would both have state via NYDFS and federal oversight, a new and unique benchmark for trust in the stablecoin market. Earlier this week, via standard custody, we also applied for a Fed master account while Congress is working towards clear rules and regulations and banks are leaning in. This access would allow us to hold RLE in reserves directly at the Fed and provide an additional layer of security to future-proof and trust RLUSD. Ripple's always has and always will continue to build trust, battle-tested and secure infrastructure in a $250 billion plus market. RLUSD stands out for putting regulation first, setting the standard that institutions expect. This is exactly what we've been saying on this channel for the past year, guys. How many videos have I put together saying that Ripple is going to become a bank? Here it is, man. We have been right all along. Let's get into the information of what Ripple needs to do to become a bank. When is Ripple going to become a bank? We have heard time and time again that the end goal for Ripple is to be a lender of last resorts. That would mean that they are a bank or some type of financial institution that can loan money or help governments or countries or financial institutions if needed. So I wanted to take a look at if Ripple would become a bank today, what would they actually need to do? Circle and other competitors are already making that move. We're also going to take a look at the benefits and how this would benefit Ripple by becoming a bank. I'm Crypto Sensei. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go ahead and better understand what's going on here. So for Ripple to become a bank in the United States today, it would need to undertake a rigorous multi-step process governed by the Federal Reserve and state regulations. There is currently no public confirmation that Ripple is actively pursuing a banking license, but speculation persists due to recent events and statements from industry figures. Here's what Ripple and you need to know based on the current regulatory framework, right? So you would need to first choose the type of bank that you want to be. Which type of bank charter? Ripple would need to decide whether to be a full purpose federal national bank charter from the Office of Comptroller of Currency, also known as the OCC. We saw earlier this year that the OCC did give clarity to banks to use cryptocurrency. They could also be a state charter or potentially a new digital first charter if such an option becomes available. So because we're doing this big push in the US right now, there might be some type of new license that infrastructure companies could apply for to become. Remember, Ripple has licenses all over the world. They cover a large portion of the United States already, and they're actively pursuing new licenses all the time. A proposed digital-only charter currently being discussed by figures like Greg Kidd, an early Ripple investor, could allow companies like Ripple to operate as banks, focus on deposits and payments without requiring physical branches or lending services. However, this charter is still in development and not publicly yet available. They would need to prepare a comprehensive business plan for the bank. How are you going to be successful? What type of services are you going to offer? Ripple would need to develop a detailed business plan outlining its mission, objectives, products, services, and target market, and financial projections on the bank. The plan must demonstrate a viable path to profitability and compliance with regulatory expectations. So remember, Ripple does everything with full compliance first, AML, KYC, and every other thing under the sun, because the people that Ripple is working with directly aren't you and I. They are financial institutions, banks, credit unions, financial market infrastructures, and central banks. All of those that I just mentioned require the highest amount of compliance and standard, and Ripple does abide by those qualities. Assemble a qualified management team. I would imagine that Ripple has already developed a business plan. I don't think anyone at Ripple is sitting on their hands waiting for, someone to say go. I think that this is being developed behind the scenes. Ripple is always going to have a plan, whichever which way they're going to go and the market turns, their team is ready to basically go on a drop of a pin. And it's really, really exciting to see such smart people working together to build out this infrastructure that most people won't even realize that they're using, but we know at the end of the day that people will be using XRP and RLUSD to move value value instantaneously across the world. Regulatory authorities require banks to have experienced senior management, including compliance officers, risk management professionals. Ripple would need to recruit and demonstrate it has such expertise in-house. Now, we've already looked at the Ripple team and how qualified those people are, the board of directors, people on RLUSD and that board as well. They have all of this already in-house. They could make phone calls to people and get them to participate in this bank if they so needed. Ripple is one of the biggest blockchain infrastructure companies in the world, and it's only going to get bigger, in my personal opinion. Meet capital requirements. Ripple would need to satisfy minimum capital requirements which for a national bank in the US includes common equity tier capital ratio of 4.5%, tier 1 capital ratio of 6%, total capital ratio of 8%, and leverage ratio of 4%. Additional ratios may apply depending on the character of the business model. Now remember, Ripple has a whole lot more money to play with than Circle had. You know, we looked at the numbers for Circle before the IPO. That might be a little different now because their stock is worth a whole lot more, but Ripple does have the war chest to enable all of this if they really wanted to, and they do have the connections in the industry to make this happen. Register and apply for a charter. Ripple would need to register as a legal entity for banking purposes and submit comprehensive application to the relevant regulatory body, which is the OCC and the federal charter and state banking authorities for state charter. This application must include extensive documentation, business plan, governance structure, risk management policies, anti-money laundering procedures, and much more. They also need to obtain deposit insurance. Approval from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, is required to insure customer deposits up to a certain amount. Usually it's around $250,000. Regulatory review and approval. The application undergoes detailed review, including background checks on key personnel assessment and financial stability, risk management, infrastructure, and operational readiness. This process can take a year or more. So, you know, if Ripple is heading this direction, they're probably already working on this, ladies and gentlemen. Regulators may require pre-opening examination of additional compliance steps before final approval. Then you got ongoing compliance. Once licensed, Ripple would be subject to ongoing regulatory oversight. That already happens with RLUSD. If you remember when Ripple launched RLUSD, they waited for the New York Department of Financial Services, the NYDFS. That is, you know, who double checks their work at the end of the month to make sure they have the one-to-one backing for their stablecoin. This is something that Ripple is already probably doing, so I don't think this is a big deal. Special considerations for Ripple. Ripple existing compliance first approach and partnerships with major financial institutions could be advantageous in the application process. The outcome of Ripple's ongoing legal matters with the SEC, we know that is something that is maybe holding this back. That is going to be cleared up very soon. If a new digital first charter is introduced, Ripple could potentially leverage this to become a bank with a focus on digital payments and deposits, bypassing some traditional requirements like physical branches. However, this charter is not yet available and could move in this direction. It's speculative. So now that we understand what Ripple would need to go through, I thought that was really cool. I've never actually done that part and showing you what Ripple would need to go through to become a bank. Here is the benefits of what Ripple would gain by becoming a bank. This is by Stellar Rippler. So big shout out to them for putting this together. So let's go better understand what they're saying here. What happens when a tech company becomes a bank? Direct access to central bank systems, ability to issue loans, credit, or even custody assets, legal power to handle both fiat and crypto, seamless integration with CBDCs and stablecoins, elimination of intermediaries. Now, let me just ask you, if you made it this far in the video, if you are getting value, guys, please hit like. That really does help the channel. And if you want to leave a comment down below, me and my team are always checking to make sure that everything is going smoothly down the comments and we're answering as many questions as we can. We do get tens of thousands of comments per month, and we do our best to get back to all of those. Ripple isn't trying to partner with banks. It's trying to replace them. And, you know, I think this is going to happen. Let me know. Do you guys think Ripple is going to become a bank? When do you think so? If you believe yes, say, yes, I believe Ripple will become a bank. And when? 2025, 2026? You tell me. I'd love to better understand what you guys are thinking. And then Ripple has US regulatory clarity post SEC case. This says 25 billion in assets. Obviously, that's, you know, 100 billion now. Global payment corridors across 70 countries. Remember, Ripple has the capabilities. They're in 90% of the foreign exchange market. That's a $7.5 trillion market. If they are in the 90% of the FX market, that is the rest of the market. So Ripple does cover 90% of the globe right now, and you need to be paying attention. They also have CBDC pilots in Bhutan, Palau, Montenegro, and so much more. We haven't seen too many updates from the CBDC side, maybe because the US there's a lot of negativity around CBDCs, but other countries are moving forward with their CBDCs, and I'll bring you all of those updates and more on this channel. But here is some of the different connections that Ripple has, that banking licenses and other institutions. I mean, W3C, Internet, the World Bank, World Economic Forum, the ISDA derivatives, ISO, of course. Ripple was on the ISO team helping develop those requirements. You also have MasterCard, the BIS. I mean, so many institutions Ripple has been working with for so long. I mean, I dare you to go out and find another crypto company that has as many connections as Ripple. The only one that comes to mind right off the bat of my head, I think like HBAR. Now, you might have some incredible knowledge. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Also, key state licenses strengthen Ripple's payment networks ahead of RLUSD adoption. Like I said, Ripple has licenses and regulatory approval all over the globe. This would only solidify that. A banking license allows Ripple, of course, to issue branded stablecoins like RLUSD and other stablecoins they might want to launch, offer institutional custody, which they kind of do already, right? Ripple custody, or you could do Medico, become a gateway for tokenized real world assets, legally hold reserves in multiple jurisdictions, act as a digital clearinghouse for CBDCs. Man, there's so much use case that Ripple could do if they became a bank. Ripple already acquired Medico, a company that custodies firms' trust by banks. It's also expanding its real estate tokenization. We saw them getting into a $16 billion market over in Dubai. It's offered $5 billion to acquire Circle. Remember, this never happened, so this is a little bit older. It's hiring aggressively and regulatory compliance roles. Remember, Ripple does have an enormous war chest, and they can put that war chest to use. It'd be very interesting to see some of these regulations as laws that come forward in the next few months, if that could really jumpstart Ripple. Ripple is granted a digital banking license. If this, imagine this, Ripple was granted a banking license. It launches Ripple Bank, custodial and DeFi services. It holds treasuries, issues credit, moves dollars on chain. It connects directly with FedNow and Swift. It becomes a backend for CBDC distribution. Let me ask you this. If Ripple became a bank tomorrow, would you open an account? Because I know I would be lined up to open an account. I'd be so excited, man. All right. And you also look at, Ripple is already classified as a digital neobank, but that's a little bit different. That's not quite what we're looking for. And, there is a big shift happening in the background with financial institutions moving into the digital world. This is an older clip, but it speaks so highly to what we're talking about here. Let's go ahead and better understand what could be happening over the next few months here.
In the months ahead, central banks around the world are planning to go digital. Many of the legacy banks you've heard of, where you probably even keep your money, like Bank of America, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, they're about to be reset, overhauled by a new type of technology called fintech, which is short for financial technology.
Yeah, can I ask you, what exactly does that mean for the banks and all of us, you and me?
Essentially, it means the function of our banks is about to change. They probably won't raise public suspicion about it by changing the signs on your bank's branches. But according to my sources, the Federal Reserve will soon own all the banks. And your local branch, it's simply going to be like a licensee of the Fed. In other words, the banking infrastructure is being rebuilt from the ground up. And very few Americans are aware this is even happening. We are right on the verge of a once-in-a-generation opportunity to profit by investing in the companies that are building out the architecture for this. In the months.
What else do you need, ladies and gentlemen? You are taking on an enormous risk being in the crypto market. Everything comes with risk. There's scams. There's a technology that fails. There's fraudsters. All of these bad things happening around us. But we are trying to get through all the BS and get to a place where we can put money into what we think is the future of the financial system. Now, if you are in XRP, XLM, HBAR, Algorand, and all of these other assets, XZBEG, you probably own a piece of the next financial system. Not all of these companies are going to make it. The ones that do make it will make the greatest impact in the world. Now, let me ask you again, when do you think Ripple will become a bank? Let me know downstairs in the comments, downstairs. All right, guys, I don't know. We're just going to end it there. Leave a comment downstairs. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. Please seek financial advice if you need it. Let's get back to the video.